If you're in your 20s right now, I think there are 6 things you must be doing or should probably be thinking about. You should be investing some of your money. You should be staying active. You should have people around you and actually making an effort to keep those relationships alive. You should spend time with your family. You should be trying things outside your main job. And please learn how to cook. And yeah, I know, none of this is some insane revelation. I'm not sitting here pretending I've cracked the code to your 20s because I'm literally 26. I'm still figuring this out at the same time as everybody else. But these are things I've started caring about way more because I feel like your 20s are this weird period where you finally have some control over your own life, but you can also very easily just let 5 years disappear. You finish school, you start working, you get into your routine, and then suddenly you're like, I'm almost 30? So I think there are a few things worth setting up now while we still have a lot of time to figure things out. And the first one is probably the most obvious: investing. At this point, you've probably heard somebody tell you to invest. If you've watched literally any personal finance content, you've heard the whole thing about starting early and compound interest. And I think the problem is that when you're young and don't have much money, it can feel kind of pointless. Let's say you have $2,000. You throw that into some ETF, and when you look back at it a year later, you're up a couple $100. Okay, that's cool. But you're not retiring off that. So it's very easy to think, why even bother? But I don't think the important part when you're starting is the actual return. It's getting used to not spending every dollar that hits your bank account. Because hopefully later, you're going to make more money. And if you're already used to saving when you're almost making nothing, it becomes way easier to keep doing it once your income actually goes up. I got into investing pretty early. I think I was around 16 when I first started learning all of this. And once I was able to open an investment account, I started putting money into it. Obviously, I wasn't putting away thousands of dollars each month. I was a student, but I kept doing it. I finished university, went through internships, eventually started working full time, and whenever my income went up, I basically just kept increasing how much I was putting away. And now at 26, my personal net worth is somewhere around $450,000. And before somebody thinks I turned $500 into $450,000 off some insane stock pick, no, I did pick Nvidia, I did pick Palantir, I did do a little bit of GameStop, but most of it didn't come from that. It's mostly just working, saving a pretty aggressive amount, and then investing it consistently for years. At this point, I've had over 6 figures in unrealized investment returns, which is when the whole investing thing starts feeling a little less theoretical. You have weeks where your portfolio just moves by a few $1,000s and you're kind of sitting there thinking, that's like someone's paycheck. But it took a long time before I got anywhere close to that point. Right now, I usually put somewhere around 30 to 40% of my paycheck into investments. I'm lucky that I'm in a position where I can do that. I'm not telling you that you all need to save 40%. If you could do 5%, start with 5%. The whole thing is just getting the habit going. Because I've seen this mindset a lot lately where it's like everything is cooked anyways, housing is expensive, life is expensive, and I'm never going to retire, so I might as well just spend everything I got right now. And I get why people feel that way. But I think that's a pretty dangerous mindset to let yourself sit in for 10 years. Because having money later on gives you options. And options become way more important once you actually have responsibilities. And actually, obsessing over money made me realize something about myself. I spend a lot of time thinking about financial independence. I've always been pretty locked in on this idea of earning more, saving more, and eventually reaching some number where I don't have to work anymore. But at some point, I was thinking about it and I went, okay, why do I even want to retire early? And the answer was basically because I want more control over my time. I want to be able to wake up and do what I actually want to do. Fair enough. But then I realized I already have the free time right now. Not unlimited free time, obviously. I still have to work. But there are still evenings where I have absolutely nothing stopping me from doing something I keep saying I want to do. And somehow, I'll still end up sitting in my computer for 3 hours doing nothing particularly important. Well, I'll say I want to go outside more and enjoy the summer, and then suddenly it's 10 p.m. and I've barely left the house. And I'm sitting here trying to become financially independent so that one day I'll finally have the freedom to, go outside? But I could do that right now. So recently, I've been trying to be more conscious about how I'm actually using the time I already have. Going on walks with my girlfriend, heading downtown, being outside when the weather is nice. Nothing crazy. But I think there's this trap where you spend your entire 20s preparing for this future life where you'll finally allow yourself to enjoy things. But meanwhile, you could have been enjoying them all along. Another thing you should figure out is how you're going to stay active. And yeah, saying exercise in your 20s is probably the most NPC advice possible. Obviously, you should take care of yourself, but I think there is another reason being active is useful. It's one of the easiest places to learn how consistency actually works. You don't need some complicated strategy, you just gotta show up, do your thing, and just keep doing it. And eventually, you look back and realize you're way better than when you started. I think having at least one thing in your life like that is really important. For me, I've played sports basically my entire life, so being active is already part of my routine. I don't really have to hype myself up to go work out anymore. It's just something I do. I still play volleyball every week, which is probably one of the best things I've kept doing after university. Because now it's not only exercise, it's this consistent point in my week where I get to see people and do something I actually enjoy. So if you're someone who absolutely hates the gym, fine, you don't have to become a gym bro. Find something else. The goal is to just make moving your body a normal part of your life before you get older and suddenly have to relearn how to do it. And that connects into something else I think people in their 20s can get kind of bad at. Maintaining friendships. Once you're out of school, socializing becomes weirdly manual. Before, you would just show up to class and your friends were there. You lived near each other. Everybody had similar schedules. Then adulthood starts and suddenly seeing your friend requires comparing Google calendars 3 weeks in advance. And it's really easy to let relationships slowly die without even realizing it's happening, especially if you're ambitious. You start working, maybe you're working on something after work too, and your whole week just becomes this personal sweatshop. And I think there's a point where being locked in stops being impressive and you just haven't spoken to another human being outside of work for 4 days. I've looked at some people from my parents' generation and noticed that quite a few people just don't seem to have that many close friends anymore. And that made me wonder how much of that happens slowly. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides they're gonna lose all their friends. People just stop making plans and then a year just passes. So I've started thinking of having a social life as something you really have to maintain. Not in some weird scheduled networking way, but just like talk to your friends, actually see them. Because I don't think being successful at 40 is going to feel great if you have nobody you actually want to hang out with. And then there's family. This one has been hitting me a little harder as I get older because most of my family lives overseas. I'm lucky that I'm close with my parents and my sibling, and I still have some of my grandparents around. But I only get to see them every few years. And when you see someone every day, you don't really notice them aging. When you see them every 2 or 3 years, it's extremely obvious. You come back and they look a little bit older. Something about them has changed. And it's a reminder that you're not just getting older. Everybody around you is getting older too. So when my parents come visit me now, I pretty much drop whatever I'm doing and spend all my time with them. Whatever random project I'm working on can wait, because I can always work more later. I can't just decide later that I want another summer with my parents at the age they are right now. And I think that's something that's extremely easy to take for granted in your 20s. Your family has been there for your entire life, so your brain almost treats them like they're always going to be there. But obviously, that's not how this works. Another thing I think you should be doing in your 20s is trying stuff outside of work. And I don't even really like calling this a side hustle anymore. Because the second you call something a side hustle, suddenly there has to be some Shopify store involved and you're trying to make $10,000 a month. That's not really what I'm talking about. I just think you should have something you're trying. Something that has a chance of going nowhere. I've definitely had this problem where I'll think of an idea and then immediately start planning the perfect way to do it. I need to learn this first. I need to build this first. Maybe I'll start next month. And then 6 months later, the idea is still sitting in my notes app. So I've been trying to get way better at starting things before I feel completely ready. Even this YouTube channel is part of that. I have no idea where this goes. Maybe it becomes something. Maybe in a year I look back at these videos and they're just getting 14 views. But at least I made them. And I've done the same thing with random software projects. Some made a little money, some were complete nothing burgers. But I've gotten way more out of actually building stuff than sitting there imagining myself building stuff. And I think in your 20s, this is probably one of the best times to do this. You still have the time to be bad at something. You can start something, realize you hate it, and move on. That's useful information too. Because I think a lot of people look at somebody who's on a year 5 of some successful project and compare it to themselves sitting at day 0. Obviously, you're behind. You haven't started yet. You can't get to year 5 without having that awkward year 1 first. And please, learn how to cook. I feel like by your 20s, you should be able to open your fridge and figure something out. It doesn't have to be impressive. You don't need to know how to make a 7-course tasting menu. You just shouldn't be completely helpless if Uber Eats disappears tomorrow. Because cooking is one of those skills that gives you way more flexibility than you realize. If money gets tight, you can adjust. You can buy whatever ingredients make sense and still feed yourself properly without hating every single meal. I've been cooking since I was 10 or 12, so obviously I've had a pretty big head start on this one. At this point, my girlfriend and I will sometimes go out for dinner, and then afterwards we'll be like, that was $80? And it's not even that the food was bad, it's just that once you know how to cook pretty well, you realize how much stuff you can make at home for a fraction of the price. There are definitely restaurants where I'm not even attempting to recreate what they're doing, but your random average restaurant meal, a lot of the time I'd rather just make something myself. And I don't feel restricted by that. That's the part I like. We're not sitting at home eating sad food because we're trying to save money. We just have the option to eat well without needing to go out. And I think everybody should have that level of basic independence. I guess the main point I'm trying to make is that I don't think your 20s should be about trying to optimize every part of your life. Because I think that's another trap entirely. You can get so obsessed with having the perfect 20s that you end up not enjoying them. But I do think this is probably one of the best periods of your life to set some things up. You're young enough that screwing up something usually isn't the end of the world, and you're old enough that the decisions you're making are starting to actually matter. So put some money away. Take care of yourself. Don't disappear from everyone's life because you're grinding. Try the thing you've been thinking about trying, and learn how to feed yourself. That's basically where I'm at right now. I'm 26. I'm obviously not qualified to tell you exactly how your 20s are supposed to be. Maybe I watch this again when I'm 35 and I'm like, this guy has no idea what's coming. But these are the things I'm glad I'm taking seriously now. And if I can get to my 30s with a little more money, some people I care about still close to me, and a life that I actually enjoy living, I think I'm doing alright.